Hello, I'm Citizen, and today Coob is joining me,
I'm the American one.
and we're going to be discussing the 2005 film Batman Begins. This is a commentary to the film. We'll be uploading in various parts over the coming weeks and months, and eventually, when we've completed discussing the film, we'll stitch all the parts together and upload them to YouTube so you can listen to the whole thing in one long episode if you so desire. Coob,
What's up?
when did you first see this movie?
I think I actually first saw this movie I'd like to say I was in eighth grade. And interestingly enough, this was the only one out of this trilogy that I've only seen once. I've only seen this movie once. I've seen The Dark Knight a few times, and I've seen The Dark Knight Rises a few times. But this one, the first time I saw it, I actually really didn't like it. I just thought it was slow, which is funny because I liked The Dark Knight. I loved The Dark Knight.
That's interesting. When I first saw this movie, which was in the cinema, I thought it was incredibly fast. The editing on this movie is very quick.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that many establishing shots, which
I-
will slow a movie down.
It's ironic that I actually found this movie boring and long because Endgame had just released that year, and I loved that movie, and that movie was 3 hours.
This movie, I think, is about 2 hours and 20. That
Yeah,
was unusual for a Batman film back then because they were always around about 2 hours.
yeah,
But to me, it didn't feel long. I personally find that this film has the best story of the Dark Knight trilogy.
yeah,
I find this the tightest, and because it focuses so much on Bruce Wayne and Batman more than the sequels, I find that more interesting because I find Batman the most interesting character. Most Batman films, the villains are the draw, you know.
yeah.
In the old Batman films, they would devote significant screen time to establishing the villains. Jack Nicholson got his own origin story in Batman,
Yeah.
and so did Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. And
And so did the Riddler.
yeah, um, and even Poison Ivy got an
Hell,
origin.
hell, they gave one to, well, I guess he was the main villain, but Mr. Freeze got one too, even though that movie was bad.
It was, yeah, it was very short though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
His origin. It was like a little video playback, I think, that they
yeah,
did.
yeah,
When this film came out, I tried desperately to get some of my friends to come and see this with me,
yeah.
and they weren't interested. I got a friend in the end. I found a friend willing to see it with me, but my first, second, third choice of viewing partner, they all turned me down
Yeah.
because they could not get past this.
They couldn't get this is Batman and Robin, right?
Yes. One of them said to me, I'm not seeing another Batman film. The last one was rubbish. Which at that point, Batman and Robin had been, I think, 7 years previously. And I tried to explain to them that it was a reboot. I think reboots were a novel idea back then. They
Yeah.
weren't, we're sort of sick of reboots now and remakes and all that sort of stuff. But back then, like everyone understood prequels because of the Star Wars prequels that were just
That were just
wrapping up.
yeah, that were just wrapping up this year.
And obviously they understood a sequel. And they knew remake, but a reboot is different. A reboot is a do-over. You're
Yeah.
starting again, but you're not remaking it. So you're not doing the same story and the same characters. You're just starting again. And that was hard for people to understand. I remember when I left the theatre, as I was walking out, there was two guys in front of us, and I overheard one saying to the other, "Oh, so that means that like Jack Nicholson will be facing Batman in the next movie, like because they were under the impression that this was a prequel to the 1989 movie.
Interesting.
Batman and Robin crashed the franchise.
Stellar
famously
movie.
just crashed it. Um,
Oh,
I saw this film as well in the cinema in 1997, and I saw it twice
oh, poor
because
you.
I had a sort of out of body experience watching this movie as a kid. I I couldn't believe, as I left the theater, I couldn't believe what I just witnessed. I thought my brain had melted or something. Like it couldn't possibly have been as bad as I was remembering it. And so a couple of weeks went by, and I convinced myself that there was something wrong with me and that I should go again. And I'm
Oh,
surely I will enjoy it the second time.
poor you.
And so I went again. And I came out the second time. I was like, no, it really is that bad. I, I just could not believe it. Um, and
Yeah.
because reboots weren't really a thing, especially in 97, I really thought that was the end of Batman on film. I thought that is it. Like, because, we'd seen other franchises where they do a number of sequels and then they end up making a terrible sequel and the franchise just goes away and it never came back. And we'd seen it with many other films. And I thought, well, that's what's happened to Batman now. It's over. There will never be another Batman film at the cinema. That's
Yeah.
that. It's done
Ima
for.
Imagine if we had never gotten any of these reboots. Imagine if we never got the 2022 one. Imagine if we never got Batman Begins.
Yeah.
It would be so much different, and we'd just have we'd have two great Batman movies, and then we'd have a mediocre one, and then we'd have just absolute trash.
Yeah.
Because
And so
I
I
remember,
hated this film so much.
yeah,
Um, but now I don't mind it. Like, it's not a good film. I don't love it or anything, but I don't have any feelings of animosity anymore because I have that experience now of knowing that Batman will never die. Yeah, it might go away for a little while, but it'll always come back eventually.
he'll outlive all of us.
Right. But back
He,
then, I just really thought that was it. I didn't know it at the time that they did try to continue the Batman film franchise. So initially, Joel Schumacher
oh no.
was going to come back and do a fifth movie, but it was meant to be darker. It was meant to sort of get the franchise back on track. It was going to have the Scarecrow in it, which is interesting because that's who we got in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And Batman was going to go into Arkham and he was going to get gassed by the Scarecrow at some point, and then he would start to hallucinate and he would see the Joker. And the idea was to bring back Jack Nicholson in these sort of hallucinations. So Jack Nicholson wouldn't have a massive part in the fifth movie, but he would be in like a few brief scenes, I guess.
Interesting. I think I'd actually like to see that. That sounds because some of those elements happen in Batman Begins, and some of them happen in the Arkham games, like Scarecrow gassing. I guess it's not
Yeah,
gassing. He just kind of sticks him, but it's still cool.
it's interesting because you think, well, what is Batman's worst fear? And I remember in the animated series, he feared disappointing his parents.
Yeah, I
So
don't
he
know.
he feared what his parents would think about what he's done with his life. Because, most people think of Bruce Wayne as a bit of a fool because that's the persona that he, puts out there that
Yeah,
he's a playboy.
and plays women a lot.
Yeah, and
Like,
he's a bit dense and he's not very serious, with his life and things. And so Bruce Wayne worried that his parents might be disappointed that the damage he's doing to the family name, um, perhaps. And I think that was a fear he had in the cartoon.
yeah,
Now, in the Arkham games, when Scarecrow gasses him in that, what can you remember what fear
it
he manifested then?
it's not. It's never really a fear, but it does culminate in those. fun boss battles that I really like. You know the where the giant scarecrow and you have to hide from him and hit
I
him with the
remember that
light.
with the needles. The
Yeah,
needles
I
with
think
the
I think that was just kind of his fear was that
right.
he saw a giant scarecrow and had to defeat him.
I seem to remember him going like walking down a corridor in Arkham in the first game and seeing like the graves of his parents or something.
Y
Or
yeah, it's probably
or
just like his.
maybe seeing him getting shot or something like that. But yeah, there was nothing like specific like it was like real I think it was more like reliving a traumatic event rather than like something current that he feared.
I just looked it up and apparently it's failing to save others and succumbing to a similar fate like his parents. Apparently that is his fear in Arkham Asylum. I
Okay.
never I mean I guess I could see that with the cut scenes of him watching his parents die while he's losing his mind on fear. So I guess I could see that, but
I think there was an episode in the animated series where I think he got gassed again, and this time he, I think he imagined that Jim Gordon found out that he was Batman, and I think he was hunting him like with the police force.
interesting.
It's a long time ago, so I may be misremembering it, but I do have a sort of vague memory about that, but I'm not sure it's a real memory. But yeah, so interesting the different routes you take with it.
Yeah.
What is Bruce Wayne's current fear? And I think they were going to have Harley Quinn in it in his Batman 5 movie.
Oh boy.
And I heard that she was going to be played by Madonna. I don't know if it's true.
Was this pre or post plastic surgery, Madonna?
I'm going to say pre.
Okay.
Um, because she did do some acting, some film acting. I remember she was in Dick Tracy. Um,
Interesting.
she done a few other films, but so she had done some acting, and I think because Jack Nicholson was so much older than Bruce Wayne in the first movie, I think they were going to make Harley Quinn the Joker's daughter. I think that was
Huh.
the change that they were going to make to sort of make the. Although I don't really know why, because there's plenty of women with older men, you know.
Yeah. I
I mean,
wish we.
even in the first Batman, right? Jack Nicholson was older than his girlfriend in that film, Alicia.
Yeah. I think we should have just done a Joker 2 style Harley Quinn where well, I guess it would have been like that because Madonna is a singer, Lady Gaga is a singer,
Mm.
and she's just like this weird person who checks herself into mental hospitals and then hits on actual mental patients.
Well, okay, that's one route to go down.
What do you mean? That movie was so great. What do you mean?
Mm.
Just
Warner
kidding.
Brothers was so confident they had such a great movie on their hands with that.
S-
They
s-
showed it I think they showed it at Cannes because they
yeah, they
felt,
showed it at a film festival and then everyone
yeah,
hated it.
yeah, like a month before its theatrical release, they showed it thinking like this will generate a lot of hype and buzz, and everyone there hated it. It
What's
just
funny
killed
is
the movie. One day, I'd love to know like what he was thinking, when
remember it was
he
a
did
Joaquin
that.
Phoenix stream.
To say that is the direction we're going to go in. This is what we're going to do to the character. I don't know.
Absolute cinema. And this is a cool bat suit. It's pretty dope.
So, have you heard of Batman Beyond?
That's the second animated show, right?
Yep, the one set in the future.
I haven't watched it, but yes, I have heard of it.
So, you know the Batman the Animated Series, the 90s
Hmm.
show? This was a direct sequel to that show. It was that Bruce Wayne from that show was now an old man, like an 80-year-old man
Okay.
in the future. Alfred has long since died. Commissioner Gordon is dead. The Joker's dead. Like all of Batman's old villains are gone, and Bruce Wayne is a lonely old man living alone in his mansion. And he has a dog. Um,
Nice. A little bit
uh,
like the Dark Knight Returns, except
yeah,
Alfred's alive and
yeah, he hasn't got his
Gordon's.
Alfred now. He's
Uh,
got a walking cane. He's no longer Batman because he's obviously too old. And you have a new kid turns up who's still at school, Terry McGinnis, who becomes the new Batman.
oh,
And
nice.
and that is basically his costume that he wears in the show. Although this is
That's, that's a cool outfit. It kind of
yeah,
reminds me of something you'd see in the new Batman movies, the first one, the Batman
yeah,
2022.
yeah. There was a weird thing with the mask that I never really understood with the cartoon. He has a full face mask, like Spider-Man,
Yeah.
um, but his mouth moves in the cartoon.
Ugh.
So you'll see his mouth moving, but it's like a full mask, like right down over his lips and everything. So I never quite understood how that worked. Um,
Yeah.
some weird freaky tech, right, from the future. I don't know. So it'd be interesting if they. So the idea was that was floating around was that they would do a movie of Batman Beyond, and Paul Dini, who was a writer on the animated series. He's also written comics and a number of other things. I think he even wrote like episodes of the original He-Man show
Oh,
way
wow.
back in the day. Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff. He's a great writer. Basically, he's responsible for creating Harley Quinn
Oh,
in the
nice.
original animated series. Like that's his creation, and also he's responsible for reinventing Mr. Freeze. Because Mr. Freeze was just a guy that just robbed banks. That's it. He just went around with his freeze gun and he robbed banks. But Paul Dini in the animated series, he came up with this concept that Freeze was doing it for his wife because his
Yeah.
wife was frozen and stuff. And he gave him this tragic backstory. So that was all Paul Dini as well. So obviously when they decided like, and Paul Dini worked on the Batman Beyond show as well. So when they were thinking of making a movie, they obviously went to him and said like, "Can you do a screenplay?" Which he did. So he wrote a version of the movie, but nothing came of it. I think he said at one point that it was just too expensive, like because you're you would have to do a whole city, like a futuristic city. But
Yeah.
I don't know, like they created a whole Gotham, didn't they, for the Tim Burton films and the Schumacher films?
Y That's true. But
They
I
are outlandish cities, right? Complete original creations.
this would have been like the beginning of the heyday of CGI. So
Yeah.
they probably would have just like CGI'd it,
Yep.
which is unfortunate. But
Yeah. So
what
yeah, so
what
they deemed it too expensive, and nothing
that
came
would
of
have
it.
been cool to see though. It could probably get made now. I mean, we we have enough much we have enough money. A lot of films tend to go over budget too, so
Well, every fans have been saying for years as well that they want a Batman Beyond video game. You know,
oh,
we're hearing that Rocksteady are making a new Batman game now.
hell yeah.
And
Every time.
everyone keeps saying like it should be Batman Beyond because the Arkham games are kind of played out, aren't they? There's been so many Arkham games.
Yeah, I think Night was the logical conclusion. With the events that happen in it, what are they gonna do?
I mean, you've got no Joker anymore because he's dead.
You got no Batman either.
You've got no Batman because the whole world knows he's Bruce Wayne. Um,
Doesn't he die in he dies at the end of the game, right?
um,
Just
doesn't he go into his house and it explodes? Like he walks, yeah, he's like he walks into Wayne Manor and all the press and the media are outside the gates. and he just closes the front door with Alfred, and then the entire mansion explodes. And
Um,
so I guess it's left to the player's imagination. Like,
yeah,
there's no way that Bruce Wayne is blowing himself and Alfred up.
yeah.
There's just no way he's going to
I,
do that, right?
I just looked it up. Apparently, he fakes his own death.
Okay. How do we know that? Who was that in a book or something or a comic?
I don't, man, I don't know. That's what I've been told on Google. So,
All right, well, we always
hey,
trust Google.
yeah, always trust the internet. The internet can never lie to you.
Never.
Just like people. People can never lie to you.
Yeah. If it's written, it must be true. So, let's believe the internet. I believe he faked his death because it's just
That
so
sounds
out
like
of
a
character that he would I don't think he would kill himself, let alone Alfred. There's no way he would murder Alfred. But they literally just close the door when the mansion explodes. So how on earth do you have time to do anything?
the thing
Like
is,
they didn't even have time to like run like in pull like behind the secret entrance to the cave and go downstairs into the cave. Like they didn't have time for that because it was like 1 second later.
the thing with that game though is Batman was gonna die either way. Remember, he was gonna die with the Joker toxin in him.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But then they did that sort of post game scene, didn't they? Where there was like these muggers in an alley and they were like robbing this family and this little boy was with them. And obviously it was like shadowing what happened to Bruce Wayne as a child himself. And then they look up and they see what looks like Batman on a rooftop. And I think one of them says something like, "We're not scared of you anymore," like because they know who
Oh
he
yeah.
is. And then this thing, like this wraith-like thing, like swoops down at them, and you hear the guys scream. And then I think it cuts to black, and it's like credits. And I think he had like glowing red eyes, like it was like this demonic wraith-like creature. It looked like. I don't know what that was supposed to mean. I have no idea.
Nice.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so are Rocksteady going to somehow follow on from that, or do they maybe go backwards in time to like the earliest days of Batman? I mean, we've had Arkham Origins, but he's already fully formed Batman. You could go back even further, I guess, but I personally feel you need a fresh take on it. Whether you do like Batman Beyond or you do something else, like you could do a video game based on the Batman movie, like a tie into that. Um,
Yeah, I remember we were talking about Batman the Imposter, which is a graphic novel.
yeah. Well, the
And
the
that
Bat the Batman takes place in year two, right? In that
yeah.
film, Batman's been Batman for like he's just started his second year, and he's already had some kind of altercation with the Joker because he's Joker's now in Arkham, and he
Yeah.
visits. So you could do a prequel game to that first movie,
And see how
and
Joker ended up there.
yeah, you could have their first meeting. You could have Bruce Wayne's like first night out as Batman, the a sort of proto bat suit. You could do something like that in a game. I mean, if they started, I don't know how long they started, 6 months ago, a year ago. I don't know when they started, but like these games take years and years to make these days. So maybe it could come out and tie in with the Batman Part 2. But if it's a prequel, it doesn't have to like drop in the same year as the movie. I mean, we hope for a part three as well, um,
Yeah.
which would be, at least 3 years after the Batman Part 2. And Part 2 is not till October 2027. So there's plenty of time to do a sort of game in that universe. Or maybe they do a DCU Batman that sort of fits in with whatever James Gunn has planned.
Yeah, but I think that would rely too heavily on Superman, which I expect it to probably be decent, but that would probably rely on Superman to be a very successful movie. for something like a DCU Batman to happen. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Because that's how I'm thinking.
Yeah, I
But
mean, we don't even have a DCU Batman yet. We don't have an actor. We don't have
yeah,
a direction. We don't know what kind of version James Gunn or has in mind for that character.
yeah. If
I
a bat,
can't imagine he's going to allow a game studio to basically do the first thing that people see. I mean, and you can't start work on a game if you don't have anything to go on, really.
yeah.
Apparently, James Gunn said that someone is writing a script for his DCU Batman right now. But
Are
it's
we gonna get? Sorry. Are we gonna get the same rumors that Matt Reeves has been getting?
yeah,
Because those are some very interesting rumors that people make up.
like all kinds of
Yeah.
terrible things. And yeah, the truth is no one really knows.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad he looked like he was blurred out in that photo that he released when he turned in the script for Batman Part 2. But even though he's blurred out, he looked happy to me. I couldn't see his face, but his posture, he looked relaxed. He looks confident. He looked happy. Like
Probably
that's what
happy
it
that
looked
all
like
these
to me. Maybe
probably
I'm
happy that all
projecting
these rumors are gonna stop.
because he doesn't really post on social media, but he made that exception because I guess he was just like I wanted. I think he does post on social media, but only when he really has something to say. You
Yeah.
know, he doesn't. He's not on. He doesn't live on social media and stuff like that. So, but this was a big deal. So I'm really happy he did it because he just shut up. It shut everyone up.
Yeah, mostly he just posts when his stuff gets nominated or stuff like that.
Yeah. So Batman Beyond was another um, aborted attempt to like get the franchise rolling again. There was at least one more as well,
Okay.
and that was Batman Year One.
Oh, just a straight up adaptation of the graphic novel?
Well, it Frank Miller was writing the script. He did write a script for the film,
Okay, interesting.
and the director was Darren Aronofsky.
Oh, that would have been like the saddest movie of all time.
I have the script. I have the script, and I've read the script.
Is it good?
Um, I like it. I do like it. It feels like Taxi Driver.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we've talked about this before. Like months ago, we've talked about this.
Yeah, it feels like Taxi Driver. You have Bruce Wayne has walked away from his wealth. Um, People think he's dead, I think. He lives upstairs above a auto repair shop. The guy that owns the shop is called Big Al, I think. And I think there's a little Al as well. And he lives above and he's a mechanic and he's working on his like own private souped up car in his own time.
Yeah.
Um, and he lives above and he looks out his window and across the street there's an old theater that's like run down and it's now become kind of like a brothel, I think. There's like prostitutes walking the sidewalk across the road in the evening. There's like pimps. There's a pimp called Chi Chi, I think. And he's just like, he just reads and sounds just like Harvey Keitel from Taxi Driver. I imagine him with the bell bottoms and everything. I think he even says he has bell bottoms on in the script, like because it seems like it's set in the 70s. Um, and yeah, like Selena Kyle is a prostitute or a madam, I think, and she wears like leather and bondage gear, and she whips her customers, and she gets in trouble one evening with a bent cop, and Bruce goes over there to sort of rescue her, and it all goes very bad for him, and
Oh, yeah.
it's an R-rated movie, like. I remember one scene where Bruce goes into a bar and gets into a fight, and someone they knock out all of his front teeth.
Oh, nice.
And I think, yeah, I think he loses all of his teeth. Um, and I think I don't even remember there being like a villain in the film. I remember him forming some kind of partnership with Jim Gordon, who in the script is suicidal, I think. I think
Oh,
I seem to I think there was a scene in the graphic novel where he's sitting on the end of his bed one night and he's got a revolver in his hand. But I think in the script he might even like put it in his mouth and contemplate suicide because he's so unhappy because he's like the entire GCPD is completely corrupt and bent, and they're making his life a misery there.
yeah,
And it,
that would have been an interesting that would have been an interesting movie. And that's awesome that you had the script for that. But if it was a Aronofsky movie, that was going to be like the most depressing movie you've ever seen because he's done The Whale. I don't, have you seen that movie?
no,
And then Requiem for a Dream, which I know you haven't seen. You need to watch that movie. It's beautiful.
mm,
Um, well, not beautiful. I guess Addiction isn't beautiful, but it's a depressing movie. So is The Whale. Both are pretty depressing.
yeah.
But
I, I remember Bruce Wayne is having nightmares in the script. He like wakes up sweating. He splashes water on his face. He writes in a diary. Keeps a diary of his thoughts, kind of like how he does in the Batman.
yeah,
Remember he has that log,
yeah,
Gotham Project. This it's you've got that in there. Um, and I think at the end of it, he sort of reclaims his wealth, his birthright. Um, yeah, I think there's something with a kid gets abducted or something, and it's like a hostage situation. And
yeah.
Batman turns up and saves the day with helping Jim or with the help of Jim. That's my vague memory of it, but I remember it being good. Like it was a real page turner, but there was just bits and pieces of it where I feel like it was just a bit too far away from Batman to be accepted by the fans. I think they would have complained.
Yeah,
And obviously
that's the unfortunate thing.
Warner Brothers would never greenlight an R-rated Batman movie. They want a summer blockbuster,
That's true. I remember the rumors that the 2022 Batman was going to be R-rated,
right? Because in
and
the UK it was a 15. Um,
here I believe it got a PG-13.
yeah. Um, I think we're a little stricter here.
Yeah, you guys are a lot stricter on your content over there.
Yeah. So I think it might have been the first Batman movie to get a 15 rating because I think even like the Burton films, I think they were
Yeah,
rated 12.
they got a 12. They
They were 12 at the theater, and I think they were 15 on VHS because back then um, there was no 12 rating on VHS. It was either PG and then it jumped up to a 15. There was nothing in between. But the cinema there was a 12.
yeah.
So his films made it as a 12. And then
Yeah.
since then we got a 12A. Spider-Man was the first to get that because Spider-Man um, it got a 12 rating in the UK, and Sony didn't want that because a 12 rating means you can't go in there with a child under 12.
Oh yeah.
Whereas I know in
Here.
them, yeah,
Yeah.
you can take children to see anything, right? As long as their
Yeah.
legal guardian
I,
says it's okay.
you can't take them to see an NC-17 movie. That's the only one you cannot take a child to go see.
Hmm.
And NC-17 is basically just porn for the most part.
Okay,
Um, yeah, do you know the PG-13 rating didn't come around in America until Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom?
I did not.
That movie was so violent, they had to introduce the PG-13 rating.
And PG-13 is parental guidance, right? And
Yeah,
the
and
13, what does the 13 mean? Does that mean like it's
I,
suggested that you should be 13 or?
I think so, but the thing is, you can be 7 and buy a ticket to go see a PG-13 movie. In fact,
Hmm.
one of my theaters nearby me, they don't even ID you for R-rated movies.
Huh.
It's really weird. Like I pulled out my ID for I can't even remember what I was trying to go see, and they're like, "We don't do that here." Like, oh, and they say, "Yeah, as long as you're not causing a ruckus, we'll let you go see any movie you want." It's like, oh, nice. So fun there.
Yeah, a little different here.
And you guys are strict over there.
Yes, we are. So, so they were the aborted attempts to try and bring back Batman. And then Nolan comes along, and David Goyer, the writer of the of Batman Begins, he recently said, and I never heard it before, but he said that originally Nolan wanted to make Troy.
Huh.
Have you ever seen that movie, Troy?
I've not.
So, have you heard of it though?
Yes.
Okay, so he wanted to make that at Warner Brothers, and I think who directed that?
Wolfgang Peterson.
That's right. And Wolfgang at the time, he I think he was developing Batman v Superman
Oh, nice.
for Warner Brothers, another movie that never happened. And they kind of swapped. So Wolfgang did Troy, and then Nolan moved over to Batman. So I don't know. It's a weird thing how that came apart about, but they did. They just swapped over, and Nolan went into Warner Brothers and pitched a Batman movie because he'd heard that they want to do something with it, and they've been trying to do something for years. And he came out with his grounded take on Batman.
Yeah, it's funny
And
that I'm sorry.
go ahead.
It's funny that you mention Troy and Nolan because, well, he's coming out with a movie about the Odyssey now this year.
Yeah.
So it's maybe Wolfgang Peterson will finally get to make his. I doubt it, but maybe he'll get to have have a resurgence of his idea.
Uh, have you ever seen I Am Legend with Will Smith?
No, I actually have the book though.
And they made a 70s movies with Charlton Heston,
Oh
Ian
yeah.
Mega Man, um, based off that book. But in the film I Am Legend, there is a poster in that movie of Batman v Superman, a fake like movie poster on a
Oh
billboard.
nice.
Yeah. Which is interesting. It's like and obviously that's a Warner Brothers movie, so it's sort of like sort of in joke or an Easter egg because they were developing that for like the longest time.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so
Pix
Nolan really wanted to make a blockbuster. That was the thing he was like all about at at that period because he'd not done one before, and he thought it'd be really fun to like transition up to make some big, massive sort of epic. And so like when Troy didn't work out, he went to Batman. And he pitched it. He pitched his idea, and obviously they liked it. And
Yeah.
he said for him, the thing that so he wanted to do was to make a Batman film inspired or influenced by what Richard Donner had done on the original Superman.
Interesting.
And you remember that film, Richard Donner, his sort of his way of working was all he said verisimilitude, uh, which is treating something as if it was real, as if it was actually possible. You treat it with real earnestness. You believe that it could actually happen, even though it's preposterous. You still treat it with a sense of realism. And Nolan, being a fan of those Superman movies, he thought that's the way to go with Batman, is to because with the four previous Batman films, you had Batman in a Gotham City that is not like our real world. And so that Batman kind of fits in that world because Tim Burton's idea was, well, Batman can't exist in our world because he just can't, you know, he wouldn't, how long would a man last running around New York, for example,
Yeah.
dressed up as a bat?
Someone just like
Even with
shoot him.
even with training, even with money, in the real world, he's either he's gonna be dead, or he's gonna be captured and found out, right? It's just inevitable. Um, so Tim Burton was like, it can't be in our world. The idea of putting a man dressed up as a bat in our world, he would look silly and he wouldn't be able to exist in it. So he created a fantastical world where Batman belongs, where Gotham City itself is a character. But Nolan viewed it differently. Nolan thought, well, Batman is super interesting. And what would be really interesting is if you take a man like that and you make him work in our world. Um,
Okay.
so that's the way he approached it. And he
Yeah.
thought, so it's kind of like if you watch the like Dick Donner Superman, he filmed that in New York and he just called it Metropolis, but it's clearly New York. Like zero effort was made to make that film look like Metropolis. Like
Yeah.
it's
That's,
just New York. There's the Twin Towers and everything there. Um, it's clearly Manhattan Island and everything. Like there was no effort made to change it, to hide it. And so Nolan kind of did that with Batman Begins, although he did make efforts to alter like the look of Chicago and things, and he sort of gave up on that as he went along, or didn't put as much emphasis or effort into making Chicago and New York look like a distinct city. Kind of moved away from that a little bit. But and the other thing was um, the original Superman movie. It had an origin. Like you didn't see Superman for the first hour.
yeah, it took quite some time to see Superman.
And
And they
that's
do
what
that with
Nolan wanted to do with Batman because Batman had never had his origin on film.
yeah, it was just kind of here's Batman now.
Well, yeah, in the original Tim Burton film, he'd just been Batman for like I think like a couple of months. And so he was like an urban legend in that first film. Like some people had heard of him, but most people didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
The cops denied he existed, and you know there was like Knox was like investigating it, but he was considered a joke by people, and so that's the thing. It's like there's Batman. He's been around for a few months, and we discover his backstory in the film via like a flashback and like the investigations of Vicky Vale. But there's no like it's not like what Nolan did, where
Yeah,
he
it's not like
devotes
a
an entire hour to the backstory and the setup.
I kind of like that though, that they do that.
I like it because I wouldn't want them to do it again because we've done it. But back then it was different. It was unique, and there was something to say about it. So it was good that they did it. I like that they did it in Superman. Again, you wouldn't want them to do it now, would you? You wouldn't want to watch a Superman film now and watch Krypton explode again and watch, we don't want to go through all that again. Everyone's familiar with that story. I don't want
Yeah.
to see Bruce Wayne's parents get shot anymore. We've seen it over and over again at this point. But back then, we was okay with it. Um, so yeah, that was Nolan's plan. That was his pitch, and Warner Brothers liked it. So uh, off they went. And I I don't know how Nolan picked David Goyer to write the film, but David Goyer had written comic book movies previously. He'd
Really?
done the Marvel films. He'd done Blade 1 and 2.
Fantastic movies. Yeah, I've seen all three.
Okay.
I watched them back in 2020 because I had a bunch of free time on my hands, so I just watched like a bunch of movies during quarantine.
Now I haven't. I saw the only thing I knew about Blade was in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. There was a few episodes with Morbius, and
Oh, best character.
I think there
Be
was a yeah, and it's Morbin time.
I told you the story of the time the theater employee tried to talk me out of buying a ticket to see Morbius?
No.
I had like a free movie voucher and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I can't let you redeem this. It's too bent. Sorry, you'll have to go see another movie." He was like, "Are you sure you want to go see Morbius?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm sure I want to go see Morbius." Worst decision I ever made. Worst use of a free movie ticket I've ever used.
When you came out, was he there? Was he around?
I don't think so.
You have to avoid eye contact when you come out.
Let
Keep your
him
head
know that
down.
let him know that he was actually correct. That movie was so bad.
Mm,
Yeah, but anyways,
yeah.
back to your origin story of Blade.
Yeah, so Blade did feature in one or two of the episodes in the cartoon. And
Huh.
yeah, and it was fine, but like what David Goyer did was really great because he treated the thing as if it was real. He took all the mysticism, well, until you get to the end, then it just goes
Yeah.
bonkers. But like for most of the film, he treats it like it's a real thing. So there's no mysticism. It's a virus that's transmitted to people, like a sexually transmitted disease.
Yeah.
And the silver and the garlic, well, they are extreme allergic reactions. Like he grounded everything and gave reasons for everything to exist, and he did a great job. Um, and so, but Goya himself said he said like he has trouble with conclusions to endings of his movies, and when you look at Blade, you can see that. You can see that he sort of has trouble sort of wrapping up. I think they filmed a couple of different endings as well for that movie because they wasn't sure what to do with it. And
Yeah.
but Goya has great ideas. Like
It's
with
just in
Blade
endings.
2, Blade 2, like is so he could have just done a retread of the first film. He could, he could have just set the second film in Moscow, where the first film ends, and off he goes again on his quest. And that would have been fine, but safe. But what he did, he just sort of kind of turned it on its head and he sort of shocked the audience with something worse, a new threat. And I thought it, like number two, was very clever with what it did. I liked that it didn't play things safe. It was moving things on.
Yeah.
And I find he's very good with all that sort of stuff. And like he understands the comics and he does all his research. And I think like when he got Batman, I think he said like he went to a comic book store and he got a stack of comic books, even though he knew the character. He didn't just want to rely on his own knowledge. He was like, no, I'm going to delve deep into the history of the character and the backstory and find out like what the things he didn't know, you know?
Yeah. You used to have writers and directors who actually knew their source material, and now you have the Halo TV show where a lot of people admitted, I haven't even played the games. So it's nice
Yeah.
seeing that people are actually actually put in effort back then. I wish we could get that back now.
Yeah. And I feel that like Batman Begins is David Goyer's finest work as a
Yeah.
writer. Like because he did have a good conclusion to that film.
Yeah.
Like it was a full pack. It's the full package, I can't really fault Batman Begins with its story or anything like that. Like it's solid and it's pretty tight as well. Um, yeah. Like I'm really happy with that film. Like in fact, the more I watched it, the more I appreciated it. So
I
that's a good sign of a film because normally you can have a good time in the cinema, can't you, in the theater? But when you come home or when you watch it on repeated viewings, you start to find problems. Batman
yeah,
Begins is the opposite to me. Like, but I had a good time watching it in the theater, but like when I watch it at home, I'm like I appreciate more because I'm picking up more things and I'm not finding holes or faults. You know, there's not. It's a good movie.
yeah. When you're at the theater, you're just kind of enjoying
Yeah,
the
it's like a
experience.
you're on a ride, really.
But
You
then
know,
when you
when
come
you're at
home,
home, you can get off, you can pause it, you can go back,
yeah,
you can think about it, you know, you can rewatch it. When you're at the theater, you're just
you're
going
just
along for that ride,
yeah. If you miss something, you miss something.
right? Yeah. So once David Goyer was hired to write the script, they did something unusual, which they don't normally do on a blockbuster. They went to Christopher Nolan's garage
Huh?
and they basically converted his garage into a kind of like pre-production facility.
That's interesting.
And they
Did
had
did they ask him?
it was either his or his wife's idea because his wife was the producer on the movies as well.
Oh, nice.
They moved the car out of the garage to give them room, obviously. And
Yeah,
then they had a tumble dryer and a washing machine in the garage. And when his wife was doing the drying and things, they had to go into the garden. So that guy there on the left, that's Nathan Crawley. He's the production designer. So
yeah.
he's working in the garage with Christopher Nolan, and
On like stats.
they're making models. Like,
Nice.
because Nathan Crawley likes to do things practically in models rather than draw. He likes models, and so Nolan said to him like the first thing is to like design the Batmobile. If we the Batmobile will set the tone for the rest of the movie, and
Yeah,
it was actually Nolan's idea that it would look the way it did in the film. That it would
yeah.
have like no axle at the front, that it would
Oh
have
yeah.
these sort of tractor looking tires at the back.
I see it right behind Nolan,
Yeah.
and I see some models too. Are those models from Batman Begins, or are those just
Hmm.
separate models? Are you aware?
I
Is
think they're separate because I think what Nathan Crawley did was he went to like a model shop and he would buy like a load of model cars and model
oh, okay.
aeroplanes and he called it kit bashing.
Huh.
So he would like just take off like a cockpit from a an aeroplane from a fighter jet and then put it onto a Lamborghini or something, uh, and sort of somehow make it work and um, until it sort of became a form that like Nolan was happy with.
Interesting.
So he's doing that, and in a little side room, Goya is there writing the script, and so those three men are like there in the summer, like working away. So like they the design of the city and the car and things is being created at the same time the script is happening. So when Nolan's like, well, we're going to do a monorail that goes through the city, Nathan can then start building a monorail and start working out like how is this going to work? What's it going to look like? How is all the stops and the junctions and things all going to connect in the city? So it's unusual though, right? To start in someone's garage.
Yeah, that's like probably one of the most interesting stories I've heard of how a movie is started, or their pre-production has started.
Yeah. So by the
Yeah,
time they went to like a proper production offices and you bring on all the other people that help design and make a movie happen, they'd already designed the Batmobile. Like they were basically
nice.
ready to go. Um, which
Damn, that's
like
awesome.
I mean that's the most distinctive thing in the whole film, isn't it? Is that Batmobile.
Yeah,
Like that's the most icon I would say it's the most iconic thing in the movie.
I would say so too. I
And
can't argue with
so
that.
So now we can actually start talking about the movie itself, Coop.
Oh, nice. Well, only like after an hour of just
Yeah,
us.
yeah. So it starts after the logos. Um, you get this image of bats
Forming the
like
bat symbol.
forming a bat symbol,
That's
and
awesome.
that was Nolan's idea, which surprised me when I learned that. Because I thought it would be something that someone on the production would come up with. Like
Yeah,
someone would show some production art or something like that, and Nolan would be like, yeah, that's a cool idea, let's do that.
but
But
no,
no,
Nolan
it was
himself.
Nolan's idea. Like he had this idea of like a sunset and the bats doing this, like flying up from the trees or out of a crevice or something and forming a symbol.
That's awesome. That's an awesome idea. I might add. Coming from a director too.
Yeah.
Awesome idea.
Yeah.
Because sometimes directors will say something and it'll be like, okay, but why?
Because I don't really think of Nolan as that much of sort of a visual director.
Yeah, I much more think of him as just a director kind of
Not when
guy.
you compare him to someone like Tim Burton
Yeah,
or even Joel Schumacher. Like like they're very visual. Um, Nolan less so, and yet this was Nolan's idea. The car was Nolan's idea.
that's awesome though. I
Like,
love that.
yeah. And now we come on to a critique that I have, which is after we see the bats, we don't get this, which is an establishing shot,
Yeah.
which I would have liked. I would have liked to see an establishing shot like this, where we see Wayne Manor, and then we see the greenhouse and the well in the garden. And so we can get sort of a lay of the land and see where things are in relation to one another.
Yeah,
And then we see the children running around in the garden and playing in the greenhouse.
but instead, bam, snap, just like that. You're right in the garden. You're right.
Yeah,
Bruce and this girl, they're already there.
yep. And the camera's really close to them.
Yeah.
And the editing is really abrupt, I would say. Sharp,
Yeah.
short, lots of short edits, which at the time I found that a bit jarring. Like I was like used to opening
It's
credits, an opening
yeah.
credit scene,
All those
um,
establishing shots.
a lovely score at the beginning with some inventive credit scene, like in Batman Returns when you're going through the sewer with the baby carriage,
Yeah.
or the original Batman where you're going around these walls, these sharp turns, and you're like, what is that? And then it pulls out, and it's like, oh, I'm inside the bat symbol. How that is cool. So I'm used to things like that, and Schumacher didn't do that, but he at least had credits like playing over the action. Um, Nolan didn't do that. He did the bats, and then bang, we're in the
I
movie.
I think I want to add in the 2000s, a lot of opening credits just started to go away.
Yeah,
Like nowadays they're pretty much non-existent. I've never really seen opening credits in a movie.
yeah. I think Tim Burton's the only person that's still doing them.
Yeah,
I think he's literally the only one that's still doing it.
and doing like establishing shots
Certainly
and
in
all
like
that. Yeah.
blockbusters and things like
Yeah.
that. I think. Yeah, I mean we still get
I
establishing shots. We
okay.
certainly get establishing shots, but like credits are gone.
I know you hate him, but Wes Anderson will do opening credits as well.
Yeah,
He did him in The Royal Tenenbaums. He did him in his most recent one, The Phoenician Scheme.
yeah.
So
I
he
mean,
still does them.
I'm okay with it now. I'm okay with it now. I've become used to it now. I mean, I've had
Yeah.
20 years to get used to it, but at the time, it was like, what? Like it was really jarring. Like it really sort of, I found it strange, like that it would just like go from those bats, like, and it was like straight there with these children playing.
Yeah. It was
Um,
certainly an interesting move.
yeah, I mean, but today's audiences wouldn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was unusual for me back then. And so you have the kids playing in the greenhouse, and we're introduced to Rachel Dawes,
Yeah.
and I remember watching the film thinking, should was she originally Harvey Dent? Because we later learn that she is an assistant to the district attorney.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, what if her character had been Harvey Dent? And
That would have
Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne would have been childhood friends. They would have been friends throughout their life. You would have had Harvey Dent being an ally to him in Batman Begins when he returns to Gotham.
yeah.
And you could have had the three, the Trinity, Gordon, Batman, and Harvey together, on the rooftop, next to the bat symbol, which is, iconic from the comics. You could have had all that if Rachel had been Harvey instead. And so I wondered if there was an earlier draft where Rachel was Harvey Dent, and that I thought, I wonder if Warner Brothers had sort of gave a studio note and said, we need a love interest in this movie because we want it to appeal to women as well. And so you've got to get a woman into this thing. And I did wonder for a while if they made that change, but apparently
That's
not. Apparently not though.
it's interesting because th that Harvey Dent story you kind of brought up. That's kind of what happens in the animated series, aren't they? Kind of, well,
Not
they've known
sure
each
they were
other.
friends from childhood, but they
Okay.
are friends. And
I
even in Batman Forever, Two-Face says to him like, I think he says something like, you always were a good friend or something like that, suggesting that there was a friendship there at some point, even though we never actually saw it on camera.
yeah, I think that would have made the Nolan Two-Face story maybe a little more effective.
Yeah. Um, but apparently that was never the case. Never. That was just something
Yeah.
like I thought
J
of. Like,
just a yeah,
yeah, it never occurred to David Goyer or Nolan or anyone
a
to
head
have.
canon.
Yeah, it's just, yep, my own invention. And, I'm happy the way it is actually because Rachel is a good character
Yeah.
and she's not just a love interest. Like there is more substance to her than the other women that we've seen in the Batman films, I think.
Yeah, the
What?
Burton women had some depth to them too,
Yeah. I mean,
but not as much as Rachel.
yeah. I mean, and especially in the second film as well. Like there's more there in this film and then with the second film. She has a quite a big part to play in that as well.
Yeah.
And so that yeah, I think like especially with the way the second when I saw the second film, I really thought, yep, I'm happy Rachel's in the film even more after seeing the second film because it makes the second film makes this film stronger as well. The film's already strong, but it makes it a stronger film.
Yeah. Yeah.
The final shot we're
Bruce
going to discuss today of Bruce
Bruce
falling down
Fall.
the well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
In the comics, and the movies, they've shown a few different ways that Bruce Wayne first discovers the Batcave.
Yeah.
The earliest one that I know of is in like the mid 50s. And in that comic, Bruce Wayne says to Robin, he purchased Wayne Manor.
Interesting. Instead of like inheriting it,
Yeah,
the 50s and 60s were a little bit of a wacky time for Batman.
it's interesting how the character has changed over the years. Batman has been pretty much stable for like 30 years now, more or less.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
mythos are basically fully formed. Like we get new characters, like new villains and things like that, but the sort of backstory is basically locked in. In the original 50s version, he says to Robin, it was in another building on the property, and the floorboards gave way.
Huh. That's an interesting one.
I
That's
find the idea of the buildings being structurally unsound like that not a great idea because then my mind
You,
thinks, well, if it's coming apart there, it's got to be coming apart elsewhere as well.
yeah,
And another thing about the original sort of Batman origin is that the way he got inspired to take the iconography of a bat, he was just sitting in an armchair one evening, like contemplating like how he's going to strike fear in the hearts of criminals. And then the bat just happens to like fly through his window.
yeah,
And that's it. He's like, aha, a bat. I'll become a bat. It all sort of just falls into place for him, you know. It's all very convenient, you know. He just happens to put his foot through a floorboard and there's a cave underneath his house for him. He just happens to have a bat come through his window at the same moment he's thinking about, oh, what can I use? Like, what image can I use? And then bang, there's a bat. But it was the 30s. It's the early issues, 30s and 50s. But in the 70s, they changed it up. There was a writer at DC Comics called Dennis O'Neil. Sometimes he called himself Denny O'Neil, and he was eventually a group editor on the Batman books. I've heard Dennis speak over the years, and I cannot say enough good things about this man. Unfortunately, he died in 2020, I think. Not only was he a great writer, but he was a good man. On a human level, he was a really, really nice man. And when I would listen to him speak, always felt drawn to this man. I really wish I could have met him. His contributions to Batman are legendary. Among many of the great books that he wrote an issue called The Man Who Falls. And it's really interesting. It's just a one-off single issue, but it goes into Bruce Wayne's backstory. When Bruce Wayne left Gotham, he traveled the world for a number of years, learning different skills and techniques, fighting styles. He joined the FBI for a time before quitting. In that issue, Dennis does depict Bruce Wayne falling down the well to discover the cave. So that was an interesting retcon, which I greatly appreciate. That is the issue that Christopher Nolan and David Goyer heavily drew upon when they were writing Batman Begins. And that issue has been reprinted and added into the back of the Batman Begins graphic novel as
oh,
like
that's
an extra
awesome.
bonus story. He was one of the few people in those days that brought Batman back from the brink of cancellation because DC was thinking of canceling the comic books because they were selling very poorly back then. What happened was a man called Frederick Wortham, I think he was a psychologist, and he wrote a book called Seduction of the Innocent. And in this book, he blamed comic books for juvenile delinquency.
It's like the early video games cause violence.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. It was that, but for comic books. And he said that comic books were causing children to be disobedient to parents, violent, and it could even lead to homosexuality.
Oh, that's a crazy statement.
Yep. And and his book sold many, many copies, and many parents read his book, and they all started burning their kids' comic books and chucking them out.
That was like satanic panic as well.
And so what happened is to sort of save the industry, the comic book industry, they came up with the idea of something called the Comics Code Authority. And basically there would be a logo that would be slapped onto the cover of each issue. And it would basically say something like Comic Code Approved, which meant a parent could see this on the comic book and it would guarantee this is safe. Your little boy can read this comic and nothing bad will happen to him. It resulted in the stories becoming super juvenile and Batman became very silly. So he went from being like this dark Avenger in the late 30s and 40s and early 50s. Like he went from being this guy that would even use a gun in the early days. He would just shoot someone and go, well, he got what he deserved. He had it coming. He went from that to being this guy that would be like wearing a rainbow outfit and going to the moon with Robin to fight aliens because that sci-fi was quite big in those days as well. So there's
Yeah.
lots of silly sci-fi stories and stuff. And so what happened was, like, after a few years of that, it was just killing the comics. So DC basically gave Dennis O'Neil the assignment of trying to save Batman. And they said, you do whatever you feel is necessary because at this point we have nothing to lose. And within another month or so, we're going to be canceling the comic. And so he and a few others, they really tried to bring Batman back to his sort of 1940s roots of being this dark Avenger of the night. There's another origin of Bruce Wayne finding the cave. It may have been done elsewhere as well, probably has, but Frank Miller in The Dark Knight Returns, he has a few panels showing Bruce Wayne running on the grounds and he just falls through the ground. There's just like
Yeah.
a fissure in the ground and he just falls through it and then he discovers the cave. And that's the version that you kind of see in Batman Forever. In that film, Bruce Wayne's running in the night in a storm and he just falls through an opening in the ground and again discovers the cave. I find the one in Batman Begins the best of all of them because
Yeah.
it's if Bruce Wayne's just running across the ground and he just falls through a fissure, that suggests that to me at least it suggests that there's a problem elsewhere. Like there's a problem with the whole area.
Yeah.
The whole area could be unstable. And so that just raises many questions of like stability issues and things like that and safety issues. So, but the idea that in Batman Begins, and I think The Man Who Falls, that Bruce Wayne falls through the well on the property, like that feels that's the more realistic version. That's the version I like, that he falls down the well and then only when he's at the bottom of the well does he notice there's a gap, a hole in the side of the brickwork, which leads into a cave deeper underground. So I like that one more. It feels more real to me. Also, when Bruce Wayne falls through the well and he discovers the cave there, these bats attack him. There's a psychological component to that as well, where he gets traumatized as a boy rather
Yeah.
than rather than a bat just coming through his window when he's a grown man and he goes, oh, that's a good idea. um if he's traumatized as a child from the bats, that fear, he says, I'm going to turn my fear into something productive. I'm going to make them fearful of the thing that I fear. It just works on a grander scale for me, the way it's presented in Batman Begins.
Yeah, I think that is probably the coolest of him discovering the Batcave. That's awesome.
Right. I think we've talked enough, Coop. We've
Movie.
covered about 1 minute and 40 seconds screen time.
Thank you for listening to us ramble. It's been lovely talking to you, citizen. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. Can't
Yeah.
wait to do this again. And take care, guys.